It's March 24th. I thought it was March 25th, which is significant because that's my sister's birthday. I don't want you guys looking at my dining room mess. About to spill coffee. I clearly didn't prepare to be on here. I'm not prepared to be on camera because I very intentionally only put on some makeup because I know my mom would not approve of me going on camera. She wouldn't like not approve, but she would just be like, honey, just do a little. My mom is dying. She's in extremis in South Carolina in a hospital. And so I'm in this predicament and kind of inconceivable situation that so many people all over the globe are in, which is that we can't be together with our nearest and dearest in the midst of crisis and end of life. And yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, I don't know, like I don't even know what day it is. Yesterday, I was overwhelmed with the most blazing rage I think I've ever felt. It was almost like a transcendent kind of, not even from me kind of rage. It wasn't anything like the kind of anger and rage I feel over injustice or over personal conflicts with anybody, or when the Red Sox really blow a play. I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever felt. It almost knocked me down, and the rage, the absolute fire of rage that overcame me, something that I wanted to share with my clergy colleagues. Because I don't know, no, doctors would understand. A lot of people would actually relate to this and understand this. So I take that back. But I wanted to share it with my clergy colleagues because you're the ones who understand where I'm at best. And thank you for being my kin folk in spirit. So the rage that came to me was this. And you have to understand, I'm in a fire being consumed as this is occurring to me. I'm like, in this inferno. I was in hell. God, that's where I was, wasn't I? I was in hell. And my hell was this. I who have been at how many bedsides, how many hospital beds, how many home hospice setups. I who have been over many years able to accompany those or their loved ones who are dealing with this kind of thing, end of life, saying goodbye to a parent. I've been there, and I can't be with my own mom and my own siblings. The fire lasted a few minutes, and it was an experience that I have never had before. It almost knocked me over. I don't even know what I did physically. I think I may have been just standing there, feeling what I felt somewhere over in the dining room, because this is where I live now, in these 3 rooms generally: living room, dining room, kitchen. Then I go upstairs and I work in my study and I go to bed in my bedroom. I mean, I'm not complaining about living in these few rooms. I am so grateful that I have a home A Home for a Bunny. Remember that book? This bunny has a home, and I'm safe, and it's beautiful, and it's my refuge. So I stood there in this inferno moment and felt this rage. And then, thank God, it passed. I had this other thought, which was something about God right away, just like God is with us always. We are connected in body and in spirit. I mean, I'm made of the same genetic material. I came out of her body, and um, so did those two other human beings that I was thinking about and am thinking about constantly. And so that rage, the fire diminished it, and it didn't come back. It didn't come back when my siblings and I got on the phone with my mom for a few minutes, and she's very weak, but she sounded very sweet and comfortable, thank God. She knew us. She's been mentally 100% forever. She's never had any kind of, anyway, that's not something, maybe she has a little. Anyway, the spark that is Shirley has never diminished. This is how I talk when I'm not on. This is how I am when I'm not on. And those of you who do the ministry of spiritual direction will be familiar with this kind of silence between thoughts and phrases. After the rage passed, and as I went on with my hours of the day and so forth into the night and into today, I'm checking in with myself, like, how are you? Are you okay? Are you going to snap? Do you need to ask a friend to go stand somewhere and just like look at you from across the street, or something like, are you okay? What do you need? And I'm really, really glad for our training in self-care, which is very serious. Last night I cooked myself some really delicious and nutritious lentils and ate them, and I'm remembering to eat, and a lot of prayer, and just it's so, in some ways, like, strangely comforting that so many of us, not just clergy and religious leaders, but so many of us across the globe are dealing with this unutterable sadness. And there's a solidarity in that, and there's a spiritual kinship in that. We will remember this time. We will tell our stories. We're telling our stories already. I'm telling you my story today. So I want to talk about Easter for a couple of minutes, because I've seen clergy already. We plan way ahead for the big holidays. And God, is it April? I don't even know, right? Oh no, April's soon. And I've been seeing things like some clergy saying, we're going to have Easter when we all are back together in church. And some clergy saying, we're going to do Blue Easter, and we're going to do, I don't know, just people are trying to figure it out. And from the depth of the tomb where I am now with my mother, I just want to say, if you want to know what I would recommend, I recommend that we remember that Easter is not something that the church does. Easter is something that God does. And God does Easter, and we don't have to. My mom, every single Easter, when we were speaking, that is, because we had long periods of estrangement, for which I'm like, just like, girl. Especially now. I mean, I made my peace with it, because there's a lot of history in my mom and her family of, the silent treatment. And it's really lousy. Don't do it. You just waste time. You waste many, many years where you could be working stuff out and talking about it and being honest and dealing with the hard stuff. That's my approach. You don't lose years of each other's company. Um, I've mourned all that already. I'm all right with that. But mom used to call me every Easter Sunday morning. She was raised Russian Orthodox. She's a Slovak girl, the daughter of two Slovak immigrants, and she would always say, "Christos voskres," and I would say, "Voistenos voskres." Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. And mom wasn't Christian. She wasn't religious. She's like kind of spiritual. Always, she was a woman in recovery. She was always looking for her higher power, and she had a hard time with it. She's like, I don't know. I know there's something greater, and she always believed in kind of. She always would say things like, I had a little angel there, helping me out through that." Or so she had a strong sense of the mystical element of life. She was very magical, but her theater or her religion was the theater. Her temple was the theater. And she was a wonderful singer. And so cabarets and places like that were where she really experienced the sacred and loved it. And we went, I think it was 5 years ago for Mother's Day. I took her to New York City and took her to the revival of The King and I, which was magnificent. And, we were holding hands at the Lincoln Center Theater, and we were holding hands, and the orchestra started to play the overture, and we both just started sobbing. We were holding hands and sobbing. It was so sweet. What a wonderful, the two of us shared that emotional response to the arts. So when she said Christ is risen, it wasn't really for her coming from a place of living living the Christian path exactly, but it came from her experience as a kid of the Russian Orthodox Church, or should I say Greek Orthodox Church, because my grandparents attended both, and I know Christos Anesti is the Greek greeting on Easter morning. Christ is risen isn't something that I had to do anything about. Do you know? Like I didn't, you didn't, the church didn't. Is risen. God does it. In the ancient myth in the ancient Eleusinian mysteries, which were based on the story of the resurrection of the goddess Persephone after her time in the underworld, the greeting during those Eleusinian mysteries, which were observed also once a year in Eleusis, and they were based on they involved Demeter, the Earth Mother, and her daughter Persephone, and all of that. We don't know much about it because people were sworn to secrecy on pain of death, but we do know because it has come down to us as from eyewitnesses that at the conclusion of the mysteries, which lasted several days and took place at night, the priest or leader, whatever, held something up, and it may even have been ears of corn, and said, "She is risen." So this is a really, really old, older than we even think, formula for humans to remember that the life, death, life cycle is not in our control. She is risen. The gods in the Eleusinian mysteries, the gods make that happen. In the Christian mystery, we don't get told how this happens. We just get told the story from the perspective of those who witnessed it. He is risen. He is not here. And then the appearances of Christ and the mystery of the road to Emmaus, and the appearances and to Thomas, and Christ feeding people, saying like, I love that so much. The first thing that you do when you've been resurrected is make sure you're putting out some food for people. Have you eaten? Is there some fish? So for those of you, my dear friends and colleagues, who are struggling with Easter because the church cannot gather, because you cannot share the sacraments in person, I urge you to remember, in the words of Wendell Berry, the poet and activist, not through your will is the house carried through the night. And that might, if that, I will say no more, but to reorient ourselves, not to proclaim what the church is or isn't at this particular time, not to grieve what the church can do or can't do at this time, not to mourn the sacraments that can or cannot be shared at this time, but to remember our job, to remember our calling, to remember our witness, that Christ is risen. Life is risen. It is not something that we do. It is something that God does and is doing constantly. It just so happens that we have these sacred stories that allow us to live through the life, death, life cycle and to wind up on a day together to proclaim that. That's all I have to say today. I'm praying for you. I hope you will pray for me and for my mother, Shirley. Um, if you could add her to your list, I would be most grateful. Kiss of peace. Thanks for watching.